Very good morning to everybody. We are going to start this new semester on new discussion. In the morning session, I will be discussing with you Buddhist ethics, and then afternoon we will be discussing world religions. So these are the two courses. And Buddhist ethics may be somewhat new subject to you. But in fact, although the word ethics come from philosophy, what we discuss under this theme must not be altogether unfamiliar to you, because most of the ideas we are going to discuss in ethics under this theme are very much familiar to you. But we will be presenting these ideas in somewhat new perspective. So it's the same things you already know, but we try to look at them from a different perspective. Particularly when we say Buddhist ethics. Now, ethics is basically a branch of philosophy. So when we study philosophy, we discuss ethics. Now, therefore, I thought first we will understand what ethics means in philosophical sense. I mean the first. But of course, my discussion will be basically centered on Buddhist ethics. We will move from basic discussion on ethics to Buddhist ethics. Okay. But today, this morning, the presentation will be basically to understand what do we mean by ethics. Okay. And particularly when we look at it from Western philosophical point of view, as an aspect of Western philosophy, there are certain ideas they have developed on ethics. So we will have somewhat of a basic understanding of those things, and then we will move on to other areas. I hope you will get a series of literature articles which I have been recommended. So for your further reading, so which I will be distributing to you. You will get. So okay, we will start. Basically, ethics or moral philosophy is the study of good and bad and right and wrong behavior. Right and wrong behavior of human beings, of course. Now, basically, the ethics is defined as good and bad and right and wrong. If somebody asks, okay, what is the subject matter of ethics? Subject matter of ethics is basically good and bad and right and wrong behavior. Okay. But when we say in that manner, you see that it's pretty simple, right? Because we always talk about good and bad and right and wrong behavior. However, in a philosophical study, we can see that in fact we go deep into these concepts. Okay. Now you will see how are we going to decide what is good and bad? How are we going to decide what is right and wrong? So there are many questions related to them. Okay. So basically ethics, or sometimes it's called moral philosophy. Now these two terms, ethics and morality, we are using in our ordinary usage. Ethics has many different meanings. For example, when we talk about ethics, sometimes we talk about what we call professional ethics. Professional ethics means for any kind of profession, any kind of job we do, there are certain professional ethics that are ethics or good and bad, right and wrong for that particular profession. For example, if you are a medical doctor, now medical doctor has a set of professional ethics as a doctor. Okay? I mean, that is a part of his job. So when he is getting ready to practice, of course he has to observe those things. So that is called professional ethics. Now for example, we go to a doctor and we talk about our very personal things to the doctor, right? How if that doctor tells those things to the next patient? So the next patient who comes to him knows everything about the other person. Now that is not professional. Okay? So there are certain things. Now we don't need to go far, like being a Buddhist monk, being a Buddhist nun. You know, there are certain professional ethics because what you do is, although it's not a job, but of course that's a way of life, right? So there are certain things that you can do, there are certain things that you don't do. Now suppose a dayaka or supporter comes and talks to you about a personal problem in his or her family. Now can you tell that to other dayakas? You can't. Because you know your dayaka places a trust on you. Sometimes he or she may be discussing a very personal matter with you. Maybe a relationship his son or daughter has started with somebody. But you know, having listened to it, you can tell it around, right? So you can see that being a monk or being a nun has certain professional ethics, because as a Buddhist monk, there are certain things you are not supposed to do. So that is part of the profession. As a medical doctor, there are certain things you cannot do. Okay? So as a teacher, there are certain things you cannot do. I mean, there are different ethics that are specific to those professions. A teacher is not supposed to give, the favors to any particular people or particular students, or they reveal the question paper to only the particular students and not to others. So, these are professional ethics. So, when we talk about ethics, this term has many different meanings, but basically it concerns what is good and bad and what is right and wrong. Okay, that is basic idea. Now, move on to the next paragraph. Every religion contains teachings and practices of good and bad behavior. Buddhism is no exception. In Buddhism, basically, Sila covers this aspect. But in the teaching of the Buddha, what is good goes beyond Sila. The entire Buddhist practice may be described as involving what is good in a broader sense. Nirvana, the ultimate goal of Buddhism, is an ethical ideal. Now, what I try to say there is, now if you take religion, basically religions all over the world, all the religions are concerned about what is good and bad and right and wrong. Now, people who follow religions follow what is good and bad, right and wrong, according to their religious teachings, right? So basically every religion is supposed to teach people how to behave well, how to do right things. Now you can see that, so that aspect is common to any religion. So from religion to religion we can see there are certain differences in what they consider to be right and wrong and good and bad. In Buddhism also we find that aspect. Basically when we talk about Sila, In Buddhism, we are talking about the good and bad, right and wrong behavior, right? So in Sila, you know, there are two basic aspects. One aspect is what we call Virati in Pali language. Virati means to abstaining from wrong things, bad things. And then the second aspect is Samadhana. Virati and Samadhana. Samadhana means to do the good things. So on the one hand, you are refraining from bad things, and on the other hand, you are doing good things. So basically, right and wrong. So in the Sila, we see that very clearly. Of course, in later discussion, I will be discussing the concept of Sila in more detail with you. But basically, look at the Sila. We can say that Sila covers this ethical aspect. So in a sense, we can say in Buddhism, Sila means ethics. Okay? Now we are talking about this term ethics. From a Buddhist perspective, we can say that in Buddhism, Sila means ethics. Now, what I said earlier about what a Buddhist monk or Buddhist nun should or should not do, that is pretty much basic one idea. But of course, when you talk about Sila, Sila is a much vast, large idea. Because in the Buddhist practice, we know that it starts with Sila and moves into Samadhi and then into Panya, right? So, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Now, when we look at Buddhism, so Sila is basically to cover this aspect. But in the teaching of the Buddha, when we talk about what is good, it goes beyond Sila. Actually, you know, this is one difference when we talk about particularly ethics from Western philosophical point of view and Buddhist point of view. Now, when we talk about what is good is not only Sila actually. According to Buddhism, what is good is also Samadhi. What is good is also Panya. And also, finally, through Sila, Samadhi, Panya, we realize Nirvana. Nirvana is considered to be the best thing or the most good thing taught in Buddhism. So now in that sense you can see that according to Buddhism, if we think about the concept of good is not merely behavior. Ultimately, concept of good is, it extends to nirvana. You see? So, in that sense, we can say that in Buddhism, concept of good is given a much broader meaning. Okay? It goes beyond Sila. On the one hand, when we talk about ethics, yes, ethics is really Sila. But of course, ultimately when we talk about what is good for the human beings, then according to Buddhism, it goes through the whole practice. Ultimately, what is most desirable thing for human beings is to attain nirvana. Okay? So, you have to really understand this distinction clearly, because on the one hand we are talking about behavior. Now, Sila basically covers verbal and physical behavior, right? Verbal and physical behavior. So, we can talk about ethics at that level in Buddhism. But of course, in Buddhism, we can also go beyond those things. Okay? So, what is good? Now, if you take these two things, what is good and what is right. So, on the one hand, you have good and bad, and other hand, you have right and wrong. So, this idea, what is good, is basically we are talking about something very large. However, when we say right and wrong, we are talking about in a different sense. Now there are certain things, the right things to do or wrong things to do. So when we talk about right and wrong, we are basically talking about directly human behavior, right? If it is raining and blowing, then to open the window is not the right thing, okay? But then that rightness is not something ethical, right? Simply because you have been not very smart to open the window when it is raining. But of course that doesn't involve anything ethically good or bad. Do you see the difference between that? Because now on the one hand we say that to kill a person or to kill an animal is wrong. Okay? But at the same time we say that to open a window when it is raining is wrong. You see, there are two different meanings of the term. There are actually not only two, many different terms can be there for these terms. So in other words, we are using these things in many different senses. However, when we talk about the good, what is good and bad, so at a very basic level we can talk about good and bad actions. But going beyond that, we can talk about what is good to be what is most desirable thing, what is most beneficial thing for say us, for human beings or for all beings. So you see a basic difference between these two concepts. On the one hand, we can talk about what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong. So good, you can talk in a very ordinary sense, good behavior. We say good girl, good boy, good person. But then going beyond that, we can talk about also the good, the most desirable thing. Now in that sense, according to Buddhism, the most desirable thing is ultimately to attain nirvana, right? Or attain Buddhahood, becoming an arahant, okay? So you can see there are different grades of these meanings, okay? But to see that, you have to really think about these terms. But in our ordinary usage, what happens is we take these things for granted. We don't think about them very much. But of course, if you think carefully, you can see that there are so many things within these terms. Okay? There are so many things within these terms. So therefore, we can talk about good and bad, and also we can talk about good in the highest sense, and we can talk about the right and wrong, basically about the behavior. Right behavior and wrong behavior. Right thing to do, wrong thing to do. But that does not necessarily mean that those certain right things and certain wrong things are morally or ethically bad. Okay? As I said, my example of opening the window in the rain. It is not morally bad, but it is not common sense. It is not very good judgment, right? But by opening your window in the rain, you are not committing a papa, right? You are not committing a papa, but you are doing something not very smart. Okay, that's the difference. Anyhow, these meanings in the Buddhist tradition we will be discussing further. Okay, so basically when we talk about ethics, we are talking about or moral philosophy, we are talking about good and bad and right and wrong behavior. Now in ethics, when we say behavior, we are talking about the human behavior, right? Can we talk about animals' behavior as good and bad or right and wrong? We do talk about, the good obedient dog or, biting dog to be a bad dog. But the issue is, can we say that particular dog's behavior is good or bad basically the issue is that whether we can attribute what we call moral responsibility to animals. Suppose the dogs bite you. Does that mean that dog is morally bad? Can a dog make a decision? Can an animal make a decision, moral decision? Of course, a dog may decide to bite you or not to bite you. But is that due to moral sense? Does that animal have idea of good and bad? Does it has intention to harm you? So, this concept of moral responsibility, we will be discussing in the course of these discussions. So, when we talk about ethics, we are talking about basically human behavior. Okay? We do not think that animals behave like that, because what we know is animals behave instinctively. There is an ancient statement which says that animals' life, if you look at, they have 4 things: ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithuna. This is a Sanskrit sloka, lists these things: eating, sleeping, being scared of something, and also having sex. Now, if you look at ordinary dogs or animals' life, actually either it is eating, sleeping, or fighting with others. Like you can see, the animal's life is pretty simple in that sense. So, according to ethics, we can't attribute what we call moral responsibility. Now, concept of moral responsibility means whether we can take an animal to be responsible for its actions. But human beings, we can say that human beings are morally responsible. But even for the human beings, moral responsibility has to be practiced when the person is completely free. Suppose I point out a gun to you and say, do this. You are not morally responsible for what you are doing, right? Simply because you do it, you think that otherwise I will kill you. So you do it. Now then the issue is that, are you morally responsible for your behavior? No. That is why sometimes in the law, if you do something with sudden provocation, sudden anger, judge will say that, no, you are not guilty. Because in the sudden provocation, sudden anger, someone can do something, that person is not responsible, fully responsible for his behavior. So, there are all these very interesting issues when we talk about ethics, right? But unless we think about these things, we don't see, because we always hear good and bad and right and wrong, okay? So, but we need to think deep into these things. Okay, next what I would like to do is to move into, here we have 3 types or 3 general subject areas of ethics. Ethics is usually divided into 3 subject areas we call meta-ethics, normative ethics, and applied ethics. Now, this is basically how when you read something on ethics today in modern philosophy, you will see these 3 aspects. One is what is called meta-ethics, the other one is normative ethics, and the third is applied ethics. We will see what each these things cover, what each these things mean. Now these are 3 subject areas, or we can say 3 aspects of ethics. Either we can use the word subject areas or we can use the word aspects of ethics. So number 1 is meta-ethics. Now what does meta-ethics mean? Meta means after or beyond. In fact, in Western philosophy, this term comes in Aristotle Aristotle's philosophy, he wrote a section on physics. What he could not include in physics, he named metaphysics. Now, of course, we use the word metaphysics. We don't call it metaphysics, we call it metaphysics. But metaphysics means something that is not included in physics or something that comes after physics. So in the same manner, metaethics means something that is not included as an integral part of ethics, good and bad, right and wrong, but of course a discussion on certain matters surrounding or relevant to ethics, they are called metaethics. Under this, the origin and the meaning of ethical concepts and their nature are discussed. So when we say metaethics, we are not talking about what is good and bad, right and wrong, but we are talking about what is the meaning of good, what is the meaning of right. Okay. Also we talk about how these concepts started, what is the history of them. You know, there are issues like that. Now, for example, whether moral values are eternal and otherworldly truths, or whether they are this worldly conventions. Now, that is one thing. Or to put the same thing in different terms, whether ethics is relative or absolute. And similar issues are discussed under this aspect. Now, for example, we can talk about what is good and what is bad. Okay. Now, next step will be, we can talk about whether what we consider to be good, is it good everywhere in the world? Or is it good only in particular situation, particular occasion? Say for example, what is considered to be good in one society, is it considered to be good in all the societies in the world? Now, if certain thing is considered to be good in some society, but not in other society, then you know there is a problem. So then good means certain good things are relative to the place. Something that is considered to be good in Myanmar may not be considered to be good in some other country. Now then the issue is that what does good mean then? So good mean a relative thing, relative to particular place. Or we can talk about good, certain things we consider to be good in the past. Now are they considered to be good now? Or certain things we consider to be good now, they were not considered to be good in the past. Then what happens is the concept of good is relative to time. So in the past they were not good, but in the today they are considered to be good. Then you can question, you can discuss this matter. So are they relative? Or you can also ask the question, when we say something is good, it is good forever. No matter time, no matter place, something good is good everywhere, anywhere in the world. Is that the nature? Now, again, there are different views. So if we say that if something is good, it is good forever, then of course we are saying that the ethics is absolute. Absolute means no change. Anywhere in the world, any time in the world, certain things considered to be good have to be good. Certain things considered to be bad have to be bad. Now if that's the situation, then of course we are saying that ethical things are absolute. Now if they are not absolute, then we are saying that ethical statements or ethical, what is considered to be good or bad, are relative. Now relative to time, or are they relative to place? Now what is considered to be good in one place is may not considered to be good in another place. Now then how are we going to decide what is good and what is bad? then now you can see that when you think about these concepts somewhat deep, you can see that there are certain issues involved. There are certain issues involved. Now in the Buddhist, when we discuss Sila, we can see that Sila again has these concepts. I will be discussing later with you detail, but just to mention as an example, in the Vinaya you have what is called Lokavajja, the concept of Lokavajja. Now concept of Lokavajja means there are certain things Lokavajja. There are certain things that are considered to be Vajja or wrong. Loka, that means in the world, in the society, these things are considered to be wrong or bad. Now the other category is what is called Panyati Vajja. There are certain other things that are considered to be Panyati Vajja, means they are wrong because Buddha has, in the Vinaya, has prescribed or formulated that they are to be wrong. In other words, they are wrong simply because Buddha has prohibited those things. But they are not Lokavajja. Okay? Now, for example, Bedi Vinaya rules are coming under the second category. Now those Vinaya rules are coming under the second category because they are not morally wrong things, but of course they are wrong for the Buddhist monk. They are wrong for a Buddhist nun, but they are wrong only insofar as you are a Buddhist monk. If you cease to be a Buddhist monk, then they are not applicable to you. Now for example, after the midday, when you are observing Sila, when you are a Buddhist monk or nun, you are not supposed to eat. But is it something morally bad thing to do? There is a difference here, right? Is it something morally bad? No. Actually, if you are an ordinary person, whatever the time you are eating, it is not a problem. But when you observe Sila, say Dasa Sila, then of course we have this precept called Vikala Bhojana Veramani. Now Vikala Bhojana is wrong when you are observing the Dasa Sila. But for ordinary person, Vikala Bhojana is not something wrong. So that is an example for Panyati Vajja, right? So it is wrong because it is wrong according to the Buddhist monastic Vinaya. Right? But then Lokavajja means nothing like that. Then Lokavajja means if you kill a person, okay. Killing is wrong. Of course, Buddha also has said that in the first in the Parajika, killing a human being is wrong. But of course, killing a human being comes also under the Lokavajja. Right? It is wrong according to how the world consider to be certain things to be good or bad. So those things are Lokavajja. But Panyati Vajja are not really the morally wrong things. But they are limited because they are basically wrong. You are violating what the Buddha said. But of course, if you are not observing Dasa Sila, or if you are not a monk or nun, then of course those things are not applicable to anybody. So there is a difference between certain things are morally wrong. Certain things are wrong according to particular tradition. Another example would be, now if you are a member of a society, when you join a society, you have to follow that constitution. So to do certain things are wrong because you are a member of that society. But if you are not member of that society, then those things are not applicable to you, right? So whenever you get a membership of a society, you have to follow certain things. So, but if you don't, if you are not a member of that society, then of course you don't have to follow those things. So like that, there you can see that there are certain things. Now, issue is when we look at, when we talk about ethics, now these considerations are meta-ethics. Like we are not really talking about what is good and bad, what is right and wrong. We are talking about how they become right and wrong. Why do we consider them to be right and wrong? Okay? So in other words, now you have to understand this concept very carefully, because when we look at the Buddhist Sila, Buddhist ethics, we can see this aspect, meta-ethical aspect in Buddhism. But of course, there is no specific term for that, okay? But there is this concept we can find in the Buddhist analysis of Sila. So when we look at Sila, whether ethics is relative or absolute, or whether ethics is otherworldly truths. That otherworldly truth means that there can be certain things, that exist irrespective of time or place. Now those things. Sometimes the people give the example of, say, mathematics or numbers. Now if we say 2 plus 2 equals 4, is it different in different countries? It is the same, right? If we say 2 plus 2 equals 4, it is everywhere. Now that means we can say 2 plus 2 equals 4 is universal. Right? Now the question is, are the beliefs in ethics like that universal? If you say something is wrong, is it wrong in the whole world? Or is it wrong only in some places? Now, if you study mathematics, whether you study mathematics in Myanmar or in Sri Lanka or anywhere in the world, 2 plus 2 will be 4. Right? But when we talk about, say, certain things, so good and bad, something considered to be good may not be considered good in other country. Now then what? So can we say that good and bad and right and wrong are like mathematical propositions? Some people think that, if certain good things must be good everywhere in the world. Bad things must be bad everywhere in the world. But it differs. It differs from religion to religion, society to society. So anyhow, we are not going to answer all these questions today or in the course of this the discussions. But we have to be aware. We have to know that when we talk about good and bad, right and wrong, there are many issues we have to discuss about. Okay? So here you have, for example, whether moral values are eternal and otherworldly. Now eternal means like those mathematical things, are they valid everywhere in the world? And also are they valid in the past, in the present and in the future? Now if we say that moral and ethical things are eternal or otherworldly, they must be valid everywhere. Now according to some religions, moral laws have been given by God. Now God is considered to be all-knowing, omnipotent. We will be discussing some of these things in the course on world religions. Now if the morality was given by God, if God knows everything, God is omniscient, then of course how can you say that morality is relative? It has to be eternal, because God can't be wrong according to the belief in God, because they say that God knows everything. If God knows everything, how can God be wrong? So the morality given by God must be eternal. Okay? So that is what they say. Now this is why even in the modern world, there are a lot of problems sometimes, because people believe that, what is given by God, what is revealed by God has to be obeyed. You can't really change those things. So meta-ethics means basically to discuss this type of things that are about ethics, but not really exactly what is good and what is bad. I hope you see the difference. Now, you will also see this difference more when we move into the other aspect. Now, in meta-ethics, metaphysical issues, whether morality exists independently of human beings, or psychological issues, on what basis of mind do our moral judgments rest, are often discussed. So these are two issues that are discussed in moral meta-ethics. One is called metaphysical issues. Metaphysical issues means, metaphysics means philosophical terms we discussed earlier. Now basically in philosophy, metaphysics means the things that exist in the world, metaphysics. Okay, now also metaphysics means something that exists beyond your perception. Whether morality exists independently of human beings. Now that is one issue that is discussed in meta-ethics. Whether morality exists independently of human beings. Now if you think that the morality or the ethics or the rules were given by God, then of course it is beyond human beings. Human beings have nothing to do with that. Human beings have simply to obey to these rules and nothing more human being can do. Now that is one idea. Psychological issue is how do we obey rules? What is in our mind? Now some people say that as human beings, all of us have a capacity to decide our morality. Now that is a psychological thing. As human beings, like I said, animal may not be able to decide on morality. But as human beings, whether we are able to decide on our morality, whether each and every human being is capable of deciding on morality. Now these are psychological issues that are discussed. And then lastly, meaning of the ethical terms is another important area of discussion in meta-ethics. Logical positivist discussion on ethical propositions is a relevant example. Now another thing that is discussed in meta-ethics is what is the meaning of ethical terms? Now what is the meaning of good? What is the meaning of bad? What is the meaning of right and what is the meaning of wrong? Now these issues are discussed by some philosophers. I give this example of logical positivism. Actually, logical positivism is a philosophical school that was developed in the last century. They discuss in detail the meaning of ethical terms. And they finally conclude that ethical propositions, ethical statements are quite different from other statements. Like for example, if I say there are 100 chairs in this hall, you can count whether there are 100 chairs in the hall. If there are 100 chairs, then it is true. If there are no 100 chairs, then it is false. But when I say something like stealing is bad, is it something like whether there are 100 chairs in the hall? How can we know whether stealing is bad? Can there be situations where stealing is okay? We don't know. But if you ask about how many chairs in the hall, that's pretty straightforward. You can count the number of chairs and say, there are 100 chairs in the hall or there are no 100 chairs in the hall. But if you ask whether stealing is good or stealing is bad, it is not very easy to give an answer to that question. Suppose a person has some poison with that person and he is gone off his mind. He might be drinking this poison and die. So we will steal it from him. Is it wrong? Of course, in a sense, we say we steal it from him. But can there be situations when stealing is okay? We don't know. So there is a difference between these two sets of statements. When I say there are 100 chairs in the hall, we can always agree on that if there are 100 chairs. But when we talk about ethics, there are situations we don't know whether actually we can give a direct answer like that. Okay? So now logical positivists discuss whether ethical statements are applicable in all situations. What do they really mean? Okay. So things like that. Okay, you will see it even more clearly when we move into the next one. The second one is what is called normative ethics. Normative ethics come from the word norm. So normative ethics come from the norm. Norm means the correct behavior. Norm. We know this term abnormal, normal, abnormal comes from this term. So basically norm is a noun which indicates that correct way of behaving. That is what is called norm. So normative ethics. The field of normative ethics concerns on the content of human moral behavior. It is to provide moral standards in order to regulate moral behavior of people. It tells us what is good and what is bad and how to behave. Normative ethical theories are action guides. It is meant to answer the practical question, what should I do? Now, normative ethics is quite different from meta-ethics. Now, normative ethics means do this, don't do this. Now, that type of ethical commands come in under normative ethics. Now, if you take Sila, if you take 5 precepts, now 5 precepts are 5 things that a Buddhist should not do. Now, that is the example of normative ethics. Okay? Simply we say don't kill, don't steal, don't sexually misbehave, don't tell lies, don't take intoxicants, right? Now, simply, those are the ways of correct behavior, not to do those things. And, there are certain things when you say punya kamma, do these things, these things, respect your elders, give for charity, things like that. So, there are things that we should do and there are things that we should not do. Now, those are things, normative ethics. Now, do you see the difference between meta-ethics and normative ethics? In meta-ethics, we are discussing what is good and bad. In normative ethics, we are not discussing what is good and bad. We simply get what is good and bad. So, according to Buddhism, we have 5 precepts, you have 8 precepts, we have 10 precepts, we have Samanera Sila, and we have Upasampada Sila. Now, all those things are good things, right things to do. Now, all those things come under what is called normative ethics, right? Now, the meta-ethics we discussed earlier is not like that. In that we are discussing what is right and wrong. We try to decide what is right and wrong. But in the normative ethics, it's not like that. Normative ethics is basically the standards. Standards means the certain position, standard, certain criterion of right behavior. So that is the standard. So in order to regulate moral behavior of people, so when all people do not tell lies, we say that we regulate the people's behavior. Okay? We put the people's behavior in conformity with all the other people's behavior. So that all people don't tell lies. All people don't steal things. So we regulate the moral behavior of the people. It tells us what is good and bad and how to behave. Now, what is found in religions is usually normative ethical principles or norms. Now, when we look at religions, basically religions provide us with normative ethics. Now, in Christianity, we have what is called 10 commandments. Now, 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill. You must not kill. So, like that. So, those are normative ethics according to Christianity. 5 precepts according to Buddhism are normative ethics. Okay. So there we are not discussing what is right and wrong. We are simply given, the religion gives us a list of things. Okay, don't do these things, do these things. Okay. Now in the Dhammapada, you know, Sabba Papassa Akaranam, Kusalassa Upasampada, Sachitta Pariyodapana. So you have 3 things to do. Now that is normative ethics. Sabba Papassa Akaranam. You do not do all papa. Kusalassa Upasampada. You do all kusala. Sachitta Pariyodapana. Purify your mind. So those are examples of normative ethics. Okay. Now what is found in religion? Aristotle's virtue ethics is considered as an example for this category. And also Aristotle, in Aristotle's philosophy, there is a concept called virtue ethics. Now virtue ethics means actually it's fairly similar to what Buddhism considered to be ethics. Virtue ethics means you become with virtuous things. Like not only you talk about kindness, you become kind. Okay? Virtue ethics means, according to Aristotle, ethical person is a person who has certain virtues imbibed, incorporated into his behavior, into his character. Now, you know, that is, in a way, we can compare that with what Buddhism talks about sila, right? But anyhow, I am not going to do that at this moment, but that's an example. Aristotle's virtue ethics is considered as an example of this. Now, when we look at Western philosophy, moral theories of Immanuel Kant and Jeremy Bentham are normative ethical theories. Kant ethic is guided by categorical imperative. Of course, this is just an introduction. I am not going into detail of these things. Now, in the Western philosophy, Immanuel Kant is in his philosophy, his ethics is an example of normative ethics. Now, categorical imperative, this word, guided by categorical imperative, what it means is, when we go into detail, you can understand later better. But basically what it means is, if you do something, you must do it in a manner that it is universally applicable. Not simply because something is good in a particular occasion. Okay? What you do has to be universally applicable, universally good. In other words, you are not doing something out of your personal interest or something. You are doing something because that is good. Now, sometimes, for example, we do things, we help people in order to get help from them. But according to Kant, no, that is wrong. You must help people not because you want to get help from those people, but simply because helping people is a good thing. Okay? Now, in other words, what he says is, you must not really use human beings as means, but you must use them as ends. Look at the middle sentence. To treat humanity not as means, but as an end in itself, and acting out of sense of duty are 2 features of this position. Okay. Now, what means that now, if you do something good, thinking that you will also get good, then you are using that person as a means. But you must help a person not in order to expecting something back. You must help a person because helping a person is good. Now, universal categorical imperative, that word is used to show that you must do whatever you do, if you can universalize, universally apply it. I know that this may be a little bit difficult concept for you to grasp at the beginning because you need to read more into that. But simple meaning is that whenever you do something good, you must do it mainly because it is a good thing to do, not expecting anything. Now, if I may give you a Buddhist example, if you do something good karma, simply because if you want to be born in the heaven, according to Kant's philosophy, that is not good, because you are doing good thing because in order to get something good. But you must do it because good thing is good to do. You must refrain from bad thing is bad to do, not anything else. Okay? Sometimes we don't do bad things because we think that by doing it, I'm offending somebody. But that is not a good criterion according to Kant. According to Kant, you must not do bad things because they are bad. You must not do this particular bad thing because you will never do that bad thing. And for any person, it is wrong to do that bad thing. So in other words, you can see that Kant's position in ethics, Kant's idea is really what we call in a manner absolutist idea. So moral theories of Immanuel Kant and Jeremy Bentham are normative ethical theories. Anyhow, now Kant says that this is what you should do. In the same manner, when we discuss ethical theories, Jeremy Bentham's view is also similar thing. Now this categorical imperative has been expressed in the following manner. Act only on that maxim whereby you can't at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Now this is what I have been explaining to you. Whatever you do must be applicable universally. If you cannot apply it universally, don't do it according to Kant. Now moving to the very last paragraph, Bentham theory is called utilitarianism, utility, which is to measure an action on its outcome or consequence. John Stuart Mill formulated this theory to meet the greatest happiness for maximum number of people. Now, utilitarianism comes from the word utility. Utility means use or the applicability, practicality. So, utility. Now, utility value means whether you can use something for a particular purpose. Okay? Now, the table we use in order to keep the books and rest our hands. So that is the utility of the table. Chair we use in order to sit. That is the utility of chair. So in the same manner, utilitarianism says that any action has to be judged as good or bad depending on the utility. If the action is good, useful, then it is good. If the action is not useful, then it is bad. Now the same idea is given in the consequence, outcome or consequence. Outcome or consequence. Now if an action gives a good outcome, then that action is good. If an action gives a good outcome, consequence, result, or vipaka, good vipaka, good karma. Bad vipaka, bad karma. Okay? Now that is the utilitarianism. Now when I use the word vipaka, you might be thinking, this is very close to Buddhism. But actually when you look at carefully, we can see that vipaka or the consequence is not the only criterion to determine whether something is good or bad. Now we can keep on thinking about it, okay? But basically utilitarianism says that do anything if it produces good result. That's the So utilitarianism is a normative ethical theory. Utilitarianism says us what to do and what not to do. According to it, if something gives good result, then do it. It is good. And if something doesn't give good result or give bad result, then it says don't do it. Okay. Now Kant says that do something if you can universalize it. Do any action if you can think that that action to be applicable to anywhere in the world. In other words, according to Kant, you must not do something with any particular limited applicability. Okay? You must, whatever you do has to be universalized. Now you know these are some of the normative ethical views. Okay? Then we will move on to the last section here. The third section is applied ethics. Applied ethics is the branch of ethics that tries to determine the course of action on specific situations, particularly on controversial situations. This can be considered the specific application of normative ethics. Now this applied ethics means particularly there are controversial issues in the world. Applied ethics try to draw conclusion, come to some kind of consensus. What should we do on that occasion? What should we do such situations? What is the good thing to do? What is the right thing to do? Now for example, relative examples are biomedical ethical issues as abortion, euthanasia, genetic manipulation of fetuses, patients' rights and physicians' rights, particularly in the case of AIDS, business ethical issues, environmental issues, and matters of social morality such as gun control, nuclear weapons, capital punishment and the like. Now, applied ethics means there are certain practical issues in the world, particularly from the due to modern science. Now, for example, abortion. Abortion comes in the family life. You know, sometimes a child is conceived and the parent doesn't want to continue with that. But then they go for abortion. But whether abortion is right or wrong, now there is a very widespread discussion in the today's world. But according to Buddhism, actually, at least according to Vinay Pitaka, you know that abortion is wrong. Right? But then there are discussions about, say for example, there can be a situation, if you perform an abortion, you can save the mother's life. But if you don't do the abortion, both mother and the child will be dead. Now, what should the doctor do? Do the abortion and save the mother's life, or let both die? What do you think really? I mean, abortion is wrong, okay? But in a situation like that, if you do the abortion, you can save the mother life. If you don't do the abortion, both mother and child will be dead. Child in the sense fetus. We say fetus is unborn fetus. Now in that situation, medical doctors make a decision without much effort. They abort the child, fetus, and save the mother's life. Now is that correct? Now you know it's very difficult to answer this type of questions directly, because although on the one hand you did abortion, you saved the mother's life. So you save one life, but the other life you had to let go. But strictly speaking, abortion is wrong. But there can be situations whether abortion is right or wrong, not very easy to decide. Now, these are really the moral dilemmas, moral problems. Now, if you take applied ethics, that they are discussing this type of. Now, euthanasia, what is euthanasia? Euthanasia is means actually I think it comes to English language from Greek language. It is euthanatos. Eu means euthanatos. Thanatos means death. Eu means we can say something like easy death. Euthanasia, another term used for euthanasia is we say mercy killing. Killing somebody out of compassion, out of kindness. But can we kill somebody out of mercy, out of compassion? That's the issue. Sometimes, when a person is suffering, there can be situations that person also requests the doctor to kill him. Then doctor gives some medicine for him to die. But the question is whether it is ethically and morally correct thing to do. Sometimes it has so happened when, some of your, say, parents or mother or father or suffering so much, sometimes children have given some medicine for them to die. But is it correct? Okay, you say no. So there are situations like that. Suppose that patient says to the doctor, give me some medicine to die. Then doctor gives some medicine. Is it correct? Why not? I have the ownership of my life. I can decide whether to live or die. If I don't think life is not worth, then I can ask my doctor to give some medicine for me to die. But some of you say no, some of you might say yes. Now you see, these are applied ethics. These are practical ethical things. Although these three areas are individually mentioned, very often they overlap with one another. What it means is actually now we talked about meta-ethics, we talked about the normative ethics, we talked about applied ethics. But all these things are interconnected. You can't really separate, because now when we talk about the applied ethics, I said life belongs to me, my life belongs to me, I have the right to decide my life. Then of course you can ask, what do you mean by right? What is the right you have? Then we are going to meta-ethics. Okay? So like that, all these issues are interconnected. But I think this three parts is something very important for you to remember in your mind, because I am not going to discuss these things again in detail, because this course is on Buddhist ethics. So I am not going to talk about Western ethics to you so much. Occasionally I will refer to Western ethics, but my main thing is Buddhist ethics. But when we discuss Buddhist ethics, this division is very important, because sometimes we talk about in Buddhism why certain things are, or how certain things are good, how certain things are bad. Then we are talking about criteria of good and badness, which means meta-ethics. And then when we talk about the Vinaya Pitaka, when we talk about Sila, Pancha Sila, we are talking about normative ethics. Right? And then also there are applied ethics. Applied ethics means, there are certain situations. Now the why the Buddha had to prescribe the parajika on killing. Because some monks asked one monk to kill themselves, because they thought that life is too much suffering, samsara is too much suffering, so they wanted to die. So they sought help from somebody. Now that somebody was also a monk. How could he simply kill other monks, although they asked him to kill them? Now you see, that's the problem. So you can see that meta-ethics, normative ethics, and also applied ethics, all these can be connected to Buddhist ethics. When we talk about Buddhist ethics, we will be discussing these aspects. Okay, I will wind up today's discussion from that, but if you have any questions you want to clarify, we can maybe spend a couple of minutes on that. Okay. Yes, sir.
On the point of Bidama, total perspectives of the Bidama. So at least, can that word be used, change or replace that word?
Which word you are referring to?
Yeah, similar word. Can atheists change similar words?
Okay.
Synonym.
Well, in fact, yes, about the terminology. Now, word ethics, when we say Buddhist ethics, I discuss the term ethics because, this particular category comes from Western philosophy, right? But then, when we try to bring in everything from Western philosophical theory into Buddhist philosophical discussion, there are certain problems. Now, actually, today we are using the term Buddhist ethics to give a somewhat different meaning. That's why I said in Western philosophy, we are talking about particularly these three things: normative ethics, metaethics, and applied ethics. But when we talk about Buddhist ethics also include ultimately everything good mentioned in Buddhism, including nirvana. So, but in the Western theory, of course, nobody is talking about nirvana. So, although we are using this term, because we are using English language, we are borrowing the term from that tradition, but we have to understand this more in the Buddhist sense, okay? So, in the Buddhist sense, actually the comprehensive word is not very easy because now we have terms like punya papa, kusala kusala. I will be discussing later. But if you say kusala, akusala, certain punya papa do not come in. So we have to use both punya and papa and kusala and akusala. So there are Buddhist terms. But at the moment, I do not see one term. It is very difficult.
Can they call pollution Chetana?
Well, Chetana is only one aspect. Chetana is one aspect because Chetana is the psychological aspect. But when we talk about ethics, in addition to psychological aspect, we have physical and mental aspect. So the volition is not the only thing. Because even say if I have a Chetana to steal something, but if I don't steal, it's only a mental thing. Yeah. So therefore, I mean, all these things can be applicable to a certain extent, but I don't think even Chetana, volition can be replaced. Volition can replace this because volition is only psychological. But when we talk about ethics or Sila even, Sila is Kaya Vachanang Sangaro, physical and verbal thing. But of course, physical and verbal things have to have mind behind it. But only mind will not make action. You really have to do that, right? Because in our mind, I can get a bad volition to harm somebody, kill somebody. But if I didn't do that, I have not violated the first precept, right? Panatipata Veramani. Now, Panatipata Veramani to be violated, you have to know the person is a living person, you have to have the intention, do something, and the person has to be dead. Then only you are guilty of Panatipata. So, but we will keep on thinking because, whether we can find a better term. But at the moment, I don't see one single term that can be replaced in that. Yes, sir?
When did people start talking about ethics? And who is the first one to talk about ethics in the Western philosophy? And do we have a such thing as ethics before they start talking about ethics in Buddhism? And another question, what is good and bad? And I mean, the good and the right. Do you think that every good thing is the right thing, or every right thing is good?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Actually, when we talk about ethics, Now, again, if you take the world history of religion, now even before 6th century BCE, there was religious ideas in India. And then long before, around the Buddha's time, there were religious ideas in China, Taoism and Confucianism. So, it is not correct to think that, everything is started in the West. But, today what happens is we are borrowing the concept from Western philosophy and discussing. But of course, that doesn't mean that ethics started in the West. No. If you look at Confucianism, it's full of ethics. Taoism, but Taoism is, even before the time of the Buddha. We are talking about 6th century BC for the Buddha, but even before the Buddha, there was ethics in Indian Brahmanical tradition. I will be talking about those things in my next lecture actually. Today is just the beginning. So, yeah, you are right, because, we can't say it is here or there ethics started. Different societies in the world, they were discussing, they were developing ethical ideas. On the second question, of course, that's again, we need to continue discussing, because all the good things doesn't mean the right thing may not mean the good thing. That's why we need to be discussing in a deep manner the meaning of these terms. When we talk about, basically when we look at good and bad, right and wrong, they look alike. But when we go into particular situations, what is the right thing to do? What is the good thing to do? Now, for example, giving is good, but giving not be the right thing to do for particular occasions, right? There can be situations, giving is good, but suppose you are under medication, the doctor says never eat anything for 24 hours. But if I give you something to eat, how can you say that giving is good? So, giving is good in general sense, but giving can be the wrong thing to do in certain situations. So, that's why we need to, when we talk about ethics, we need to really go deep into the meanings and the context where these things are used. So, that's a part of the discussion we will be continuing, okay? Any other things?
I'd like to ask a big question. I suppose America is very suffering disease seriously. In this situation, a person kill his life or combo fashion, not to see his suffering. If so, it is called a killing person. Thus, he break his moral ethics.
Are you questioning about this concept of euthanasia?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I didn't, I think I got your question correctly as far as I could understand. Now, this euthanasia or the mercy killing is itself a modern medical issue, but the whole thing is, the one fundamental question is whether you can kill somebody out of compassion, okay? Now, according to Abhidhamma, we can simply say that no, you can't kill somebody with compassion, because, the killing chetana and, the chetana to kill somebody and, the compassion do not go together. But having said that, there are certain situations, like as I said, a patient decides that he or she want to die. A patient thinks that, there is no living like a vegetable on the bed, and then that person asks from his doctor, give me some medicine and kill me. Now, the problem is whether doctor can do that. Now, according to Western medical tradition, doctor cannot do it. But now, today, the situation in the world is changed. There are some countries, they have legalized it. So, there are certain countries, those elderly people who want to die, now they go to those countries and they enter the hospital and, they terminate their life. Now, how to argue this, for this or against this is not very easy. Because on the one hand, I must be able to take a decision on my life. Right? Now, if I say that, if I want to say something like this, the situation, I don't want to live anymore, I stop eating. What is that? Is that committing suicide? But if you shoot yourself, or if you jump into the train, but that is, we say suicide. But you don't do anything like that, but you simply stop eating. Is it wrong? That's not very easy to decide. You don't want to live, because since you don't want to live, you stop eating. So after a couple of days, you gradually die. Now, what is that? Is it wrong? Is it wrong according to Buddhism? No, it is not very easy. Because if you are, according to Vinaya, if you are a Upasampada monk, if you kill yourself, that's not parajika. You become parajika only if you kill somebody else. Okay? If you kill yourself. Now, killing means, okay, not taking poison, not shooting yourself, but you simply stop eating. Then what? So, Reverend, the issue is, some of these issues are not very easy to decide. Now, this is why we have to study ethics, just to think about these situations, okay? All right. So, in other words, there is no hard and fast rules for certain situations. We need to go deep into it. Okay, I will wind up at this point. What I did today is to give you a very basic idea of what ethics means, and also I gave you 3 categories, but these 3 categories are basically discussed in Western ethics, ethical studies. However, these 3 categories will be useful for us to understand Buddhist ethics also. Okay, thank you very much, and then we will meet again to continue this discussion. This afternoon I will be discussing world religions with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.